So let's now build our shader for the leaves. Let's delete this quick UV node, we don't need it. Let's jump up one level. So now we have our tree and our leaves. And on the oak leaves here, there is one option that we need to activate, which is very important. It's in the instancing tab. We need to use the instance SOP level pack primitives. If you don't, it's going to try to load all this geometry as one unique mesh, and it's going to be much heavier. So if you want to use it as a pack primitives, you should check this option here. Okay, so let's go in our material tab. Let's create a new material redshift material builder, and let's call that oak leaves. And we need actually to use a sprite, a redshift sprite. Because we could put some opacity on the leaves, but it's going to be much heavier to trace multiple recurrence of opacity in the many leaves because the opacity parameter on the material, even though it's not like refraction, it makes like this single-sided face shader, but the opacity have the potential to have semi-transparent surface. So it always try to check if you have to see a bit more or less the leaves. So it's much heavier than using the sprite node. So the sprite node is good when you want to actually make a hard crop of an object with a black and white map. So the sprite actually takes a shader as input, and it needs a texture to crop the shader. So we are going to use the opacity here actually for the sprite, and this is going to be the output of our shader. And we now need to call the texture for the albedo. This is going to be pretty basic for this part. So albedo for diffuse color. Let's take the roughness. Sorry, not the opacity, the roughness. Let's plug the roughness in the base properties reflection roughness. Let's duplicate it once more, and let's take the normal. We can so let's the albedo should be sRGB. The roughness should be raw. Normal should be raw as well. The normal needs to be plugged into bump, redshift bump. No, not the bump blender. The bump, the normal bump. Okay, it's gonna be time on space normal. 8 scale to 1. Let's plug the texture in the texture. Let's plug the output in the overall bump. We can also, if we want to take the translucency, if we want to plug this to the translucency of our shader, depends on how rich we are. Let's plug that in the base parameter, translucency color, and we might raise the translucency weight a bit to have the light passing through the leaves. Concerning the index of refraction, let's decrease it. And let's go to JJX specular lobe. We should be good for the shading of our leaves. We now need to apply the shader to the leaves. So let's back to our object level, and on the oak leaf, Y up, and let's go to our render tab, and here we can choose the material. So you've seen on the tree we were able to assign materials to faces using the material node, but we can also assign materials at the helper level if we just have one material assigned to the full content of one geometry node. So let's go to the matte tab, and let's take the oak leaf. Let's press accept. Let's save our scene, and let's open the Redshift render view. So we are gonna have to let it warm up a little bit. It's gonna pre-process the texture we've added for the leaves, load the geometry in cache, and start the render. Okay, so the camera is where we left it the previous render. So let's go back here and look through our cam, log the view, and let's take a look at our leaves. So you see that now we have all the result of the setup we've made. So we actually have more yellow leaves on the left side, and the leaves are ranging from green leaves from the bottom of the tree to more burnt leaves on the upper side. So if the leaves are too big, we might reduce their size a bit, but it's looking pretty nice. And now it would be up to your scene to see what's the look of your scene. So if we want to reduce the scale, we might go and multiply our scale attribute, for example, in the oak leaf setup. For now, I have here, if you check here, I have the p scale attribute, and I can just multiply. So I can use a attribute remap, and I could just like take the original name. So p scale, and it's a point attribute. It's ranging from 0 to 1 as minimum, as maximum, and I could like say it's ranging from 0 to 6 on the output, and it's gonna make my leaves smaller. So you see here, if I just deactivate this one, I can reduce the scale of my leaves. And it's better to do it on the point rather than on the geometry here, because you could, if you want to export your point cloud and just plug directly your geometry in it without having to put anything between the actual leaf and the copy to point, it's better to store the information in the points. Okay, so if you want, you could also bend your leaves if you want. So it's gonna be just like, it's not gonna be as random as in speed tree, because like each leaf won't have a different bend value, but we can still do it like that. So if we go to not blend, bend, we can add a bend deformer, and let's check it. We want the capture direction to be up, and we want the up axis to be, oops, sorry. We want to have the up axis to be the z axis. Okay, so now I can bend my leaves. And now if I go to the copy to point, I can go and check the result of it. And here you see that I introduced a bit of bending in the leaves. So let's not put it too much. Okay, so here is how you get your leaf with the shader, plus a nice randomization on a custom polygon made leaves in Houdini. So starting from here, continuing from here, we could do the same for the oak leaves, and the nice things would be to start and scatter some more moss on the trunk, scatter some small mushrooms and stuff like that. So if you see the result of my video for the tutorial, I've actually push it a bit further by adding some moss at the base of the tree, and also in the shader, I made some noise and some shader facing upward to add some moss texture on the trunk on top of the textures from the speed tree, so unrelated to the UVs. So, but this would be another topic and another subject for another tutorial to dive into that. But just to give you ideas for eventually pushing that further. So I will also make a video to show you how to get the information from SpeedTree to Maya for people who don't want to push the setup in Houdini that far. We can also do it pretty easily in Maya. It's going to be much heavier because it's going to be unique geometries, but it's going to be also much simpler.